you hear over the radio, we're taking fire, we're under fire.
We're under fire.
And you hear the pleading in their voices.
You can hear it.
That they need help bad.
I actually dropped to a knee, and then I'm like, why the hell did I do that? And that's when the rocket hit.
Roan had a machine gun, and he started laying down hate.
I rolled him over. There was no response. I ripped off his body armor, took a pulse, couldn't feel nothing.
When you realize they're dead, what do you do?
I just kind of said a prayer over both of them.
Hello, everybody! Ace here, giving it to you straight with Conspiracy Realists. Today's show topic is very near and dear to my heart, the Benghazi scandal, or as some people have come to know it as, the other 9/11. The story behind this cover-up is even more messed up than the reality of it. On September 11th, 2009, our consulate in Benghazi, Libya was attacked. The original narrative was that a YouTube video had been released disrespecting Islam, which then sparked outrage, protests, and riots across the Middle East. The official story by HRC and the State Department involved this video and a protest, which led to the breaching of our consulate and the death of our ambassador. 8+ years after the event, new details have begun to surface as to what really happened, which we're going to get into those juicy details in the later half of the show. But I wanted to start today's episode off by jogging all of our memories and taking a trip down memory lane of the fiasco-turned-circus, leading to one of the greatest cover-ups in U.S. history. But before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and follow me on IG at Conspiracy Realists. Now, hold on to your face diapers, people. Shit's about to get pretty insane.
It's now Arwa Damon in Benghazi, Libya. Ben Wiedemann is in Cairo. Arwa, let me start with you. What's going on in Benghazi right now?
Well, the situation is pretty tense. Just about every single Libyan that we have been speaking to, of course, expressing their horror, their outrage about Tuesday's attack, saying that this most certainly is not indicative of how Libyans themselves feel. This most certainly is not why Libyans overthrew Gaddafi's regime, but also really wanting to see their own government begin to take control, begin to rein in these various militias. The government, for its part now, says that it's 100% confident that Tuesday's attack was carried out by extremist group or groups. They say they detained 4 people, not disclosing which group they were affiliated with, but they were also saying that they believe that this attack was pre-planned, intended to inflict maximum damage, to drive an irreparable wedge between the Libyans and the Americans. But what is also disturbing, Wolf, is that the government is saying that at this point in time, it does not possess the capabilities to control these armed extremist groups.
Arwa, earlier you walked through what remains of that U.S. consulate in Benghazi, where Ambassador Stevens and the 3 other Americans were killed in Tuesday's attack, and you sent us dramatic video. Walk us through what you saw.
We walked into the main residential building, and that is where we were told Ambassador Stevens died of smoke inhalation. Standing inside that location, seeing partial blood stains on the walls, seeing the soot, the ash, the debris, seeing remnants of the life that was, and bits and pieces of what those who were actually stationed there believed in. There was a piece of paper that had scrawled across it, "Libya is so important." It was a real chilling, somber experience to be walking through it. And one also, though, must point out at this stage that the attack that took place did not just happen at this one location. After personnel were evacuated from this compound, they were then taken to a safe house, where we are being told a short while later that location too coming under attack. So this really is putting a lot of questions out there. First and foremost, of course, the capabilities of the Libyan government, but also the question as to whether or not the U.S. underestimated the threat that it faces here. Libyan security officials have been telling us that for months now they've been warning the United States about this growing extremist threat, and that they have been growing ever more concerned about how little control they actually themselves have over the situation.
Arwa, please be careful over there in Benghazi. We'll stay in close touch. Arwa Damon, one of our courageous journalists.
Mr. Chairman, you just gave a long answer, Madam Secretary, to Ms. Sanchez about what you heard that night, what you're doing, but nowhere in there did you mention a video. You didn't mention a video because there was never a video-inspired protest in Benghazi. There was in Cairo, but not in Benghazi. Victoria Nuland, your spokesperson at the State Department, hours after the attack said this: Benghazi has been attacked by militants. In Cairo, police have removed demonstrators. Benghazi, you got weapons and explosions. Cairo, you got spray paint and rocks. 1 hour before the attack in Benghazi, Chris Stevens walks a diplomat to the front gate. The ambassador didn't report a demonstration. He didn't report it because it never happened. An eyewitness in the command center that night on the ground said no protest, no demonstration. 2 intelligence reports that day. No protest, no demonstration. The attack starts at 3:42 Eastern Time, ends at approximately 11:40 p.m. that night. At 4:06, an ops alert goes out across the State Department. It says this: mission under attack, armed men, shots fired, explosions heard. No mention of a video, no mention of a protest, no mention of a demonstration. But the best evidence is Greg Hicks, the #2 guy in Libya, the guy who worked side by side with Ambassador Stevens. He was asked if there had been a protest, would the ambassador have reported it? Mr. Hicks' response: absolutely. For there to have been a demonstration on Chris Stevens' front door and him not to have reported it is unbelievable, Mr. Hicks said. He said, secondly, if it had been reported, he would have been out the back door within minutes, and there was a back gate. Everything points to a terrorist attack. We just heard from Mr. Pompeo about the long history of terrorist incidents, terrorist violence in the country. And yet 5 days later, Susan Rice goes on 5 TV shows, and she says this: Benghazi was a spontaneous reaction as a consequence of a video. A statement we all know is false. But don't take my word for it. Here's what others have said. Rice was off the reservation on 5 networks. White House worried about the politics. Republicans didn't make those statements. They were made by the people who work for you in the Near Eastern Affairs Bureau, the actual experts on Libya in the State Department. So, if there's no evidence for a video-inspired protest, then where'd the false narrative start? Started with you, Madam Secretary. At 10:08, on the night of the attack, you released this statement: some have sought to justify the vicious behavior as a response to inflammatory material posted on the internet. At 10:08, with no evidence, at 10:08, before the attack is over, at 10:08, when Tyrone Woods and Glenn Doherty are still on the roof of the annex fighting for their lives, the official statement of the State Department blames a video. Why?
During the day on September 11th, as you did mention, Congressman, there was a very large protest against our embassy in Cairo. Protesters breached the walls. They tore down the American flag. And it was of grave concern to us because the inflammatory video had been shown on Egyptian television, which has a broader reach than just inside Egypt. And if you look at what I said, I referred to the video that night in a very specific way. I said, some have sought to justify the attack because of the video. I used those words deliberately, not to ascribe a motive to every attacker, but as a warning to those across the region that there was no justification for further attacks. And in fact, during the course of that week, we had many attacks that were all about the video. We had people breaching the walls of our embassies in Tunis and Khartoum. We had people, thankfully not Americans, dying at protests, but that's what was going on, Congressman.
Secretary Clinton, I appreciate most of those attacks were after the attack on the facility in Benghazi. You mentioned Cairo. It was interesting what else Ms. Newland said that day. She said, if pressed by the press, if there's a connection between Cairo and Benghazi, she said this: there's no connection between the two. So here's what troubles me. Your experts knew the truth. Your spokesperson knew the truth. Greg Hicks knew the truth. But what troubles me more is I think you knew the truth. I want to show you a few things here. You're looking at an email you sent to your family. Here's what you said. At 11 o'clock that night, approximately 1 hour after you told the American people it was a video, you say to your family, 2 officers were killed today in Benghazi by an Al-Qaeda-like group. You tell the American people one thing, you tell your family an entirely different story. Also, on the night of the attack, you had a call with the president of Libya. Here's what you said to him. Ansar al-Sharia is claiming responsibility. It's interesting, Mr. Katala, one of the guys arrested and charged, actually belonged to that group. And finally, and most significantly, the next day, within 24 hours, you had a conversation with the Egyptian Prime Minister. You told him this: we know the attack in Libya had nothing to do with the film. It was a planned attack, not a protest. Let me read that one more time. We know, not we think, not it might be, we know the attack in Libya had nothing to do with the film. It was a planned attack, not a protest. State Department experts knew the truth. You knew the truth, but that's not what the American people got. And again, the American people want to know why. Why didn't you tell the American people exactly what you told the Egyptian Prime Minister?
Well, I think if you look at the statement that I made, I clearly said that it was an attack, and I also said that there were some who tried to justify it on the basis of the video, Congressman. And I think
but real quick, calling it an attack is like saying the sky's blue. Of course, it was an attack.
Well,
we want to know the truth. The statement you sent out was a statement on Benghazi, and you say vicious behavior as a response to inflammatory material on the internet. If that's not pointing as the motive of being a video, I don't know what is. And that's certainly how the American people saw it.
Well, Congressman, there was a lot of conflicting information that we were trying to make sense of. The situation was very fluid. It was fast moving. There was also a claim of responsibility by Ansar al-Sharia. And when I talked to the Egyptian Prime Minister, I said that this was a claim of responsibility by Ansar al-Sharia, by a group that was affiliated, or at least wanted to be affiliated, with al-Qaeda. Sometime after that, the next day, early the next morning after that, on the 12th or 13th, they retracted their claim of responsibility.
Madam Secretary?
And I think if you look at what all of us were trying to do, and we were in a position, Congressman, of trying to make sense of a lot of incoming information and watch the way the intelligence community tried to make sense of it.
Madam Secretary.
So all I can say is nobody...
There was not conflicting information the day of the attack because your press secretary said, if pressed, there's no connection between Cairo and Benghazi. It was clear. You're the ones who muddied it up, not the information.
Well, there's no connection.
Here's what I think's going on. Here's what I think's going on. Let me show you one more slide. Again, this is from Victoria Nuland, your press person. She says to Jake Sullivan, Philippe Reines, subject line reads this: Romney's statement on Libya. Email says this is what Ben was talking about. I assume Ben is the now somewhat famous Ben Rhodes, author of the Talking Points memo. This email is at 10:35, 27 minutes after your 10:08 statement. 27 minutes after you've told everyone it's a video. While Americans are still fighting because the attack's still going on, your top people are talking politics. Seems to me that night you had 3 options, Secretary. You could tell the truth, like you did with your family, like you did with the Libyan president, like you did with the Egyptian prime minister. Tell them it was a terrorist attack. You could say, you know what, we're not quite sure. Don't really know for sure. I don't think the evidence is there. I think it's all in the first one, but you could have done that. But you picked a third option. You picked the video narrative. You picked the one with no evidence, and you did it because Libya was supposed to be, as Mr. Roskin pointed out, this great success story for the Obama White House and the Clinton State Department. And a key campaign theme that year was GM's alive, bin Laden's dead, Al-Qaeda's on the run. And now you have a terrorist attack. And it's a terrorist attack in Libya. And it's just 56 days before an election. You can live with a protest about a video. That won't hurt you. But a terrorist attack will. So you can't be square with the American people. Tell your family it's a terrorist attack, but not the American people. You can tell the president of Libya it's a terrorist attack, but not the American people. And you can tell the Egyptian prime minister it's a terrorist attack, but you can't tell your own people the truth. Madam Secretary, Americans can live with the fact that good people sometimes give their lives for this country. They don't like it. They mourn for those families. They pray for those families, but they can live with it. But what they can't take, what they can't live with, is when their government's not square with them. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Madam Secretary, you're welcome to answer the question if you would like to.
Well, I wrote a whole chapter about this in my book, Hard Choices. I'd be glad to send it to you, Congressman, because I think the insinuations that you are making do a grave disservice to the hard work that people in the State Department, the intelligence community, the Defense Department, the White House did during the course of some very confusing and difficult days. There is no doubt in my mind that we did the best we could with the information that we had at the time. And if you actually go back and read what I said that night, I was very careful in saying that some have sought to justify. In fact, the man that has been arrested as one of the ringleaders of what happened in Benghazi, Ahmed Abu Khattala, is reported to have said it was the video that motivated him. None of us can speak to the individual motivations of those terrorists who overran our compound and who attacked our CIA annex. There were probably a number of different motivations. I think the intelligence community, which took the lead on trying to sort this out, as they should have, went through a series of interpretations and analysis. And we were all guided by that. We were not making up the intelligence. We were trying to get it, make sense of it, and then to share it. When I was speaking to the Egyptian prime minister, or in the other two examples you showed, we had been told by Ansar al-Sharia that they took credit for it. It wasn't until about 24 or more hours later that they retracted taking credit for
Secretary
it.
Clinton?
We also knew, Congressman, because my responsibility was for what was happening throughout the region. I needed to be talking about the video because I needed to be putting other governments and other people on notice that we were not going to let them get away with attacking us as they did in Tunis, as they did in Khartoum. And in Tunis, there were thousands of demonstrators who were there only because of the video, breaching the walls of our embassy, burning down the American school. I was calling everybody in the Tunisian government I could get, and finally President Marzouki sent his presidential guard to break it up. There were example after example. That's what I was trying to do during those very desperate and difficult hours.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, Secretary Clinton, you said my insinuation. I'm not insinuating anything. I'm reading what you said. Plain language. We know the attack in Libya had nothing to do with the film. That's as plain as it can get. That's vastly different than vicious behavior justified by internet material. Why didn't you just speak plain to the American people?
I did. If you look at my statement, as opposed to what I was saying to the Egyptian prime minister, I did state clearly, and I said it again in more detail the next morning, as did the president. I'm sorry that it doesn't fit your narrative, Congressman. I can only tell you what the facts were. And the facts, as the Democratic members have pointed out in their most recent collection of them, support this process that was going on where the intelligence community was pulling together information. And it's very much harder to do it these days than it used to be because you have to monitor social media, for goodness sakes. That's where the Ansar al-Sharia claim was placed. I think the intelligence community did the best job they could, and we all did our best job to try to figure out what was going on and then to convey that to the American people.
It is always better to be the first committee to investigate, and it is always better to investigate as contemporaneously to an incident or to an event as can be done. Our committee did not have the luxury of either one of those. We began a year and a half after the incidents, but collectively and individually, all 7 of us believed that there were more questions to ask, that there were more answers to acquire, more witnesses to interview, more documents to access. And this report validates that belief. There is new information on what happened in Benghazi, and that information should fundamentally change the way you view what happened in Benghazi. And there are recommendations made to make sure it does not happen again.
And I think that if you will read the report, that you will see, as the chairman mentioned, that what was going on in Washington at 10:08 when the secretary made her first comments, we had men on the roof at the annex trying to protect their lives and the lives of the other Americans in Benghazi. If our fellow citizens will read this, they're going to come up with their own opinion of what happened. Because there's enough new evidence that I think that people will be able to put together for themselves exactly what led up to this attack, what went on during the attack, and then the post-attack when there was so much misinformation that was being repeated by this administration.
At 10:08 that night, with Tyrone Woods still on the roof of the annex fighting for his life, Secretary Clinton issues this statement, the official statement on Benghazi, the official statement of our government that evening. Some have sought to justify this vicious behavior as a response to inflammatory material on the internet. We know that statement was misleading because an hour later she told her daughter, terrorists killed 2 of our people today. The next day she tells the Egyptian Prime Minister, we know the film had nothing to do with it. It was a planned attack, not a protest. And maybe the best example is from the 14th. Same day Mr. Rhodes issues his talking points. But that day we have Mr. Carney at a press briefing saying this, no information to suggest Benghazi was a pre-planned attack. No information to suggest a pre-planned attack. That same day, State Department official in Libya says this, Benghazi was a well-planned attack. You couldn't have a starker contrast than those 2 statements.
This was attack by radical Islamic terrorists on an American facility. There was no fog of war. There was no dispute, save for a few stray news reports. The evidence was very clear. Go read what Secretary Clinton herself said. Go read the words from other officials who were on the ground that night, communicating back to the most senior levels of government what had transpired that night. It wasn't about a YouTube video. It wasn't about a bunch of folks out for a walk. And when Secretary Clinton said, what difference does it make? We can now, as a result of our work over the last year and a half, tell you exactly what difference it makes.
But what we didn't know until this investigation was that the State Department made a conscious decision to keep the Benghazi compound off the radar and not provide it the security that it needed.
At the end of the day, no military assets were ever moving toward Benghazi. The bottom line is that Washington failed to have our guys' backs when they needed it.
Who remain anonymous, right?
Yes, correct.
Jack and DB.
Correct, yes.
So you were set up to protect the annex, which was the CIA.
The personnel at the annex, yes.
This gives us a perspective of the other facility there, which was what you guys call the Consulate. Where are we here?
Here's the Consulate, and then here's us. Here's our compound.
So pretty close. About
3/4 of a mile as a crow flies. About I'd say mile drive, if maybe a mile. If you did the whole thing.
So this site, was it well protected?
Ooh, who wants to take that one?
No, it looked nice. It was a beautiful compound. I mean, it had orchards.
It was
Had
beautiful.
a really nice
Swimming pool.
house. Had a swimming pool.
They had their own security.
They
were their own security.
They were their own. Yeah.
Diplomatic security.
The diplomatic security.
They didn't have like an American force, like a Marine detachment. They did it themselves.
So what'd you tell them?
Me and my bluntness. I said, if you guys get attacked, you guys are going to die. You know that, right? And I remember I said, if you ever need us, you just call us. We'll come get you.
What's your reaction when you hear ambassadors coming to Benghazi on September 10th, September 11th, of all days?
And you were like thinking, there's only 5 guys that protect him, and that's a huge compound.
All right, so 9/11 comes.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty routine day, it sounds like.
Yeah, it
during the day?
It was actually normal day, just doing normal task organization stuff.
You had to move late, I guess it was late in the afternoon? Or
late afternoon, early evening. Went out to meet some people for dinner. Normal night. Town looked normal. There was nothing that looked any different than any other day.
And there was no whisper that this video was a major problem in Benghazi or something?
Didn't know about video till I got to Germany. No idea about any video. No, sir.
All right, so how do you hear that something's wrong?
Our team leader, he actually came across the radio, and I remember I looked at my watch, and it was 9:32 when I first got the call on the radio that said, hey, we need all GRS.
GRS? What is
Yes.
that? GRS operators?
Global response staff.
Global response staff. Yep. And I remember I looked at DB and said, hey, something's going on. We're going to do something tonight. Just grabbed my stuff, threw my shoes on, and started moving to our team room.
Where were you?
Myself and Jack were in Building D. I was just getting undressed, getting ready to go to bed.
I meet the TL about halfway, about right there, and I said, hey, man, what's happening? And he goes, the Consulate Center attack. You can start hearing the fire, the actual concentration of fire and some explosions.
It was a relatively quiet night in Benghazi. And by 9 o'clock, the 7 Americans in the compound are settling down for the night. You've got the ambassador in his room writing in his diary. You've got Sean Smith, the communications expert, online talking with a friend. And you've got 5 diplomatic security agents. Somewhere around 30 or 40 minutes later, men stream onto the compound, bearing AK-47s, chanting in Arabic, shooting off their guns. Almost instantly, they've overrun the compound. The 17 February militiamen who were supposed to be guarding the compound, they just flee.
Now, you're ready to go.
5 minutes, we're ready. Thumbs up, we're ready to go.
Then what happens?
I went up to the TL, and I said, hey, we're ready to go. Bob looks right through me, and he looks at the team leader and goes, you guys need to wait. He's on the phone talking to somebody. I assumed they were trying to coordinate us to link up with 17 February.
Which is the local militia.
Which is a local militia.
It had probably been 15 minutes, I think, and I got out of the car, and Bob and the team lead were standing on the front porch, and I just said, hey, we need to get over there. We're losing the initiative, and Bob just looked straight at me and said, stand down, you need to wait.
We're starting to get calls from the State Department, guys, saying, hey, we're taking fire. We need you guys here. We need help.
Yeah, we were talking about it in the cars.
On our radars, what the hell's going on? Why are we waiting?
Ambassador Stevens and Sean Smith are forced to take refuge in a specially protected area, the safe haven inside the villa. With them is Scott Wickland, a security agent charged with protecting the ambassador. They hide behind a locked gate. Wickland waits in the shadows with a rifle, ready to shoot anyone who tries to enter. The attackers can't get in, but use nearby diesel fuel to set the villa on fire. From beginning to when you're ready to go, thumbs up, you're ready to go out, to the time when you actually pull out.
Mm-hmm.
What's that time frame?
It's close to 25 minutes. I went up to Bob. I said, hey, we need to go. And got the wait again. And I got in my car, I told the TL, get in the back seat. And looked at Ron. He gave me a thumbs up. I gave him a thumbs up. And we left.
And you guys did that pretty much on your own.
Yes, we did. We were never given the okay to go. We got the final straw for us to go, at least that's my opinion, and how I felt, was where one of the DS agents said, hey, they're starting to light the buildings on fire. You guys need to get here.
They used the word stand down. A number of people now, including the House Intelligence Committee, they insist no one was hindered from responding to the situation at the compound. The committee's wording was, quote, there was no stand-down order given to American personnel attempting to offer assistance that evening. So what do you say to that?
No, it happened.
It happened on the ground. All I can talk about is what happened on the ground that night.
To you?
To us. To myself twice, and to Tig once. It happened that night. That happened. We were told to wait, stand down. We were delayed 3 times.
You asked for support.
After I was leaving, I said, well, get us an ISR, which is a UAV, a drone, and get us a Spectre gunship.
So the drone would have given you eyes
on.
Above.
Yep, giving us
and
advantage.
The AC-130.
Support, protection, and
firepower.
Exactly. I still remember it. It gives me kind of chills. It says, they're lighting the buildings on fire. If you guys do not get here, we're going to die.
Scott Wickland leads Ambassador Stevens and Sean Smith to a spot in the bathroom inside the safe haven. The window there is barred, and acrid smoke billows into the area. He hopes to get them to a nearby bedroom, which has a window that can be opened from the inside. He says, "Follow me," and crawls toward that spot. It's dark and smoky, but he makes it to the window. He opens it and drops out. Only then does he realize Stevens and Smith haven't followed. He goes back in several times, but can't find them. Finally, exhausted and choking, he climbs to the roof and radios Alec Henderson and Dave Ubben, 2 security agents elsewhere inside the compound. His message? The ambassador and Sean Smith are missing. Now, Tig, you and Jack and Roan are going the front gate.
Yes.
And it's open?
When I was standing right here, and a Land Cruiser came from this direction, I thought it was like bad guys stealing the Land Cruiser, so I drew down my weapon. Then I saw it was DS guys were actually driving it. And that's when I heard, hey, we can't find the ambassador. So I started moving towards the front porch, getting up on the front porch, and that's when they're pulling Sean's body out of the window.
Sean Smith. But the ambassador's still lost.
The ambassador's still lost.
Yeah.
Tig, you and Tyrone Woods, Roan, go into the building one of many times, but go in, and there's a moment there.
He was saying, hey, I can't find my way out. I could just say, come to my voice, but he almost made another right into where I think it was a dining room, and it was just totally engulfed in flames. I reached out, grabbed him, and said, this way, and we just went out and coughed up a couple lungs.
Now, Tonto, you're back here with DB.
Yes. I looked at one of the Libyan guards in the back. He goes, Mister, come open the gate. So I came back, I opened the gate, I looked at the commander. I said, when you come through this gate, you close it and you lock it. And I moved forward, and as we find later, that he didn't do that. And we paid for it. We paid for it down the road.
You've been there for a while now, and you can't find the ambassador. You've been in multiple times. Yep. Then you hear gunfire from outside the compound. And then rocket-propelled grenade.
All of a sudden, a big explosion. Bam. Just huge.
Where's it hit?
It was over in this area. So it's basically on the other side of where we were all trying to mass and collect and get out. And another explosion goes off, and it's coming from the gate that
was left
open. And I just started returning fire.
I was inside the safe haven. That's when I heard the explosion and the gunfire started cracking off.
And what'd you do?
I moved from here over to here, crouched all the way down. It was the same time a guy with an RPG moved into the view of the gate, and that's what he was coming up here shooting, and he'd run away, come up here, shoot, run away. And just as he was shooting, I shot him.
You shot him, he went down.
And then it was just weird. It's like a light switch. Everything stopped.
So you guys finally get together. You, give up the search for the ambassador?
The team leader, he made the call, and we'd done everything that Tig had been in that house. Jack had been in the house so many times. The State Department guys had now left the compound. They were gone. They were on their way back to ours.
Roan tells them, make sure you take a left. And then in the confusion of the counterattack, they take a right.
Take a right. I said to myself, I can't say what I said to myself on camera, but it was, damn, you knuckleheads. Now we're holding a piece of property that basically there's nobody else on.
The TL, he just comes over the radio to say, "Everybody get down. We're getting out of here."
While they were jocking up, Roan calls me on the cell phone, tells me, "You need to get back to base and just stay away from the consulate."
So you tell the case officer, we gotta wrap up this day.
Yeah, she's trying to say her goodbyes. And I'm like, "We need to go now." And like any good case officer, she's trying to gather information on what's going on. Then I just looked at her and said, "You know what? You're in my world now. You need to be quiet because let me do what I need to do."
Now, you have been back on the compound in the annex for a while. You said before you felt like you wanted to be with your team, but you also knew you had a job to do there.
I knew I was the only one. I mean, we had two site security officers. They were a great help. But from the GRS side, I was the only one that was there.
The DS guys come back first.
Yes.
The armor car held up, but they roll in.
Yeah, I could hear when they were leaving, they announced it over the radio, and then I heard tons of gunfire and knew kind of where they were at just from the direction. And then all of a sudden they're calling that they're coming in.
Hot.
Coming in hot, which means they're coming in fast.
Just have the gate ready.
Have the gate open. You hear that flop, flop sound of the tires just, they're on run flats, but you still hear that sound coming through, and both sides in the front windscreen were all shot up. You could see the relief on their face once they got in. Scott got out. He looked like a chimney sweep. He was still black almost from head to toe. I told him to get inside, get some medical help. The other guys asked what they could do, and I told them to get up on the various buildings. And we had one get up on each one of these buildings here, and I went back up on this building until our guys come in. They knew where they needed to go. So each one of them went to their pre-positioned or pre-planned positions. Jack is up on this roof. Roan's up here.
Tano and DB are
here. Tig is over in this corner initially, and I'm over in this corner over here.
You guys are exhausted.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, some of you probably have smoke inhalation, and you're preparing maybe for another fight.
But now we know, just gut feeling we're going to get attacked, and my adrenaline went back up. And so
it wasn't long after they had showed up, you start hearing tires screeching over in this area. And we started asking over the radio to the TL if Feb 17 is coming over to assist us. And then the response was they're not sure. So we immediately assumed that anything that's coming in is coming in that are bad guys.
I asked the status of the Spectre gunship, and the teamer came across the radio and said, "Hey, checking on it." And that's the last time that I got an actual answer if we're going to get any support or not.
I was expecting at least some kind of air support, even if it was just a flyover by a jet or whatever.
Sometimes that's all it takes. It gets the bad guys down.
And no doubt that would have been nice.
I want to put this back up here just so you can describe what's outside the annex that you're most concerned about.
The stockyards. Yep, stockyards, and this is lot of concealment. It's a lot of bushes and small trees in this area, and this is what we call zombie land. Basically, this whole area.
Most of the activity we're hearing is coming over from right at this intersection.
Yep, they're starting to stage here in this whole area. This is just a big open parking lot. And here's the house that we're seeing people start to go into that little area.
And they can come into here, and it gives them access to our back gate.
So you're watching this develop in these cars and the people going into this house that you don't really know if it's bad guys or not. And what's the engagement? You're going to wait till they fire on you?
Wait until we see action from them that specifies them being attacking us or going to attack us. I'm not going to wait to get hit before I hit back. We start seeing movement coming from this direction through the night vision goggles.
The caveat here is this house had kids in there that would actually come and pester us every once in a while. You just didn't want to open fire. You didn't want to. I don't want to shoot somebody that doesn't have it coming to them, and it's definitely don't want to shoot a child. They were starting to move up on us, and I remember DB says, "Hey, I got movement."
Are you lasing them?
Oh yeah, I've got my laser, and I am lasing targets. Saying, "Hey guys, I'm picking out targets, people I see." And I got on the radio with Oz and Tig. I said, "You seeing what I'm seeing?" And he goes, "Yeah, I got your laser."
Now, can they see it?
No, only with night vision.
At this point, when they're moving up, in my mind, they're getting ready to be. We're going to engage them. We're just going to let them get as close as possible, and then take them out. The first thing they fired was a RPG, and it went flying over the compound.
Came over our myself and DB's head.
I was bringing water over to Oz. I got about right here, about the corner of the gym, when a gelatina.
It's a huge flashbang.
Yeah, it's a homemade explosive.
So it goes off. It hit right here, just inside.
To me, it was just okay. It's on, and we just started fighting, started lighting them up, and I was just lasing targets, shooting them.
The firefight starts. What does that look like?
It's gorgeous, man.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
It's a green hue, and with the lasers dancing back and forth from target to target, you see 3-4 sets of lasers just bouncing back and forth, taking out targets, and you'll see a flash of light, which is the enemy shooting at you, and hear the rounds going past your head, and you're just re-engaging in those spots.
Anybody take a hit?
Yeah, me and Tig were up on this in this corner, and they were trying to shoot out the lights, and secondary from one of the rounds hitting the wall, or one of the lights splattered up into my face and cut me across the top of the bridge of the nose.
So you push back. You obviously take down a lot of people, and it stops.
To me, and that's how I explain it. It's hey, we won that game. All right, good deal. Morale goes up. I think all of us could feel it. That it still wasn't over yet. That was just the probe. That was just they're going to see our defenses, and they're going to be coming back with a bigger force, because that's what we would do.
But there's a big break there then.
Big break.
2 hours?
Yeah.
2.5 hours? Yeah.
At what point do you hear about Ambassador Stevens?
There was a DS agent up on the building with Jack and Scott Wickland, and he got a phone call, and that's how we found out that he was at the hospital.
By 1 a.m., local looters and curiosity seekers have entered the consulate grounds and infiltrated the safe haven. 6 apparently good Samaritans come across an unresponsive man. They take him to the Benghazi Medical Center, where he's worked on for 45 minutes before being declared dead. They have Scott Wickland's phone, which had been given to Ambassador Stevens during the attack. Calling Wickland's stored numbers, someone gets to the American embassy in Tripoli and says a man has been found and he's dead. The caller provides a description matching Ambassador Chris Stevens.
There's a car pulls up and parks right here. A guy comes around from the side of the car, and he's reaching like he's throwing something. And right as he brings his arm back to throw, I engage him. I move and shoot him 2 to 3 times. He goes down, and whatever he threw landed just short of our back gate and exploded, which then engaged. Again, it was
the signal.
And this was bigger. It was a larger force coming through. There was, I'd say, between 20 cars.
And again, we just started engaging the threats as they appeared and taking them out.
They were like ducks in a row at a shooting gallery, hitting one guy in the head and dropping.
But it's like bursts of fire.
But it's not.
They were kind of spraying. They were just constantly spraying.
We are doing control bursts. You aim, you shoot. You aim, you shoot. It's not the movies. You don't flip it on fully auto and you go after it, because you can't hit anything. You're aiming a single shot, and you're shooting until they turn tail and run.
So far you've taken AK fire, you've taken RPGs.
Yeah.
Are you worried that something heavier is coming?
Yes. After the second?
Second.
Yes.
You're waiting for a third.
Waiting for something bigger. During that second attack, that's when I actually finally got a chance to sit down. All you can think of is, what was the last conversation that I had with my spouse or my kids? Was it good? Was it bad? And
What was yours?
It was good. You always want to make, especially overseas, you want to make that last conversation always good.
When was it?
It was the night before. So I knew I had spoken with them, and hey, that's it. Get them out your head. It's time for to back on the job.
Roan had just come back up, and we'd been sitting up there talking because we both had young kids.
Roan had extended, but he was looking forward to going.
Yeah, he was looking.
That was his last
because
trip.
He wanted to see his getting to see his baby.
I had twins.
He had twins.
Yeah.
What's he telling you?
Every day and 2 or 3 times a day we would Skype and send photos and videos of the twins. Whenever I was expecting a phone call and didn't get one, that's when you start to worry a little bit.
All right, you guys good? We always emailed or talked on the phone, and he would always call around 3-4 p.m. our time, always. And if he didn't, I knew ahead of time why he wasn't going to be able to call.
We'd talk every day whenever time would allow, and most often the same time every day. If he didn't call me, at the time he was supposed to call me, then, I would begin to worry.
That's one of the reasons I'm fighting. It's one of the reasons I'm doing what I do. Not only for the people here, for the family back home, but primarily you're thinking about the team.
And that's your
And
family.
their family.
And
Their family, because their family, we're all family now. We're all brothers, and that's the way it is. And, so you're thinking of this family here as much as that family there.
Most of the people are staged here in C.
I ended up on top of the command center in Building C, with Roan at this point.
More cars come by. What happens then?
we don't know what they're doing. We don't know if they were guys that lost or they were still trying to probe us.
And there's a guy with a cell phone.
Yeah. And he just walked up, cell phone, and walked back. Maybe he was getting GPS coordinates with his phone. Again, it's just another thing in Benghazi. It's eerie. I want to shoot him, but is he just some guy taking a walk? Weird things are still happening that night. We're trying to think that, all right, morale's up, we're out of this, we're good, we fought him off again. I was expecting, more cars. It was actually, the first convoy was quite small, but I was just happy to see him. 3 of the guys I'd worked with before, so I recognized them off the bat, and
including Glenn,
including
Doherty.
Yeah,
Navy
Navy
SEAL,
SEAL.
connection with Roan, with Jack, and you had worked with.
In fact, Bub and I had just done a trip in Tripoli before Benghazi. I just knew Bub from contracting.
Okay, so they come in, they go to Building C.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys are still kind of waiting for what's happening.
The aircraft that they had wasn't big enough to take us all back. So they were going to take the non-shooting personnel and get them out.
To the airport.
Yes.
To the airport. We were going to stay there and hold the Alamo. And
literally.
Yeah, literally.
And I think they'd probably been there about an hour. Me and Roan were talking about that, wondering, what's taking so long? Why aren't we getting out of here? The sun was starting to come up, but it was, we better be ready for another attack because this is when it's going to come. It was about that time that Glenn came up on the roof.
Climbed up the ladder?
And come over and was talking to Roan, and Roan had introduced me to Bub because I had never worked with him before. He says, Bub's a sniper. And I'm like, well, hopefully we ain't going to need you, but I'm glad to have another shooter up here. Bub turned and was walking back towards the front of the building, and almost immediately a mortar come in and landed on top of the wall right there.
When I heard it, and I didn't even know I heard it, it basically sounded like when a rocket goes off and it's
small arms fire started coming from this direction. Roan had a machine gun, and he stood in probably like a 3/4 crouch position and just started laying hate down through this avenue of approach from here. I started to engage with him. I ran out of ammo, knelt down, changed magazines, and right as I'm coming up, and I start to re-engage, another mortar hits almost to the center of the building here. And that one, it knocked me back. And and that's what hit Roan. Roan was standing to my left. I got knocked back, and as I stood back up, I saw him out of the corner of my eye, and he was in a fetal position in the corner right here. I stand up and try to re-engage with my rifle, and I bring my hand up, and from here down is hanging off at a 90-degree angle.
Your hand is just hanging, flop.
Yeah. I just keep trying to bring it up, and it won't stay. You can't make it work. And that's when the second round hit. That's when I saw Bub go down about right here. I wasn't sure if he was hit or if he was just taking cover. And then I turned back and again try to engage and get my hand to come up, and a third round hits in the same vicinity. And at that point, I mean, I just felt like I got stung by 1,000 bees just up and down my side. And I figure I better get to some cover now in case another one comes. And the whole night went quiet after that.
That's tough to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, just a little.
I bet.
Yeah. But, it's what has to be done. I mean, you're in a fight, you got to stay in the fight. That's the only thing I could think of is Roan's down. Somebody needs to continue firing.
And you see this mortar attack happen. What are you doing?
I'm still, I'm over here on Tower 3, still, covering this area. To me, it looked like it hit like right around here. We had no cover for mortar attacks. I mean, even in the buildings, I'm surprised that one didn't collapse. Another explosion hits right here. When I heard another thump, that's when I jumped off the tower, moved back, got somewhere right around here, and that's when the mortar hit. And once that mortar hit, it was pitch black and dead quiet. Jack came over and said, "Hey, man, there's no movement." And that's when I sprinted to the ladder, and then I just kind of skiddied on up as fast as I could, jumped over the parapet, and that's when I saw Dave Ubin off to my left. Looked like somebody in the center, and then a couple other people maybe over here. But it was a lot. The smoke was still up there from just the debris kind of settling down, and so I moved over to Dave. I find a tourniquet because Dave's leg was pretty much completely severed off. I think it was just barely hanging on by a thread, and same with his arm.
Some ligaments, yeah.
So got the tourniquets on him. Called back on the radio, say, "Hey, I need help up here. I need help." I heard noise, so I moved over to where the noise was, and it was
I was trying to get a tourniquet out and put on myself, and then I saw him.
Meanwhile, your hand is still flopped down.
Yeah. So I pulled out the tourniquet, and I was just trying to fix my arm. I just kept grabbing it, trying to put it back in place. And
he's just sitting there kind of going, "Hey, check this out." And his arm is, it's just, I'm like, "Dude, you need to stop. You're going to make it worse." So I was bored. He had his tourniquet there, reached down, grabbed his tourniquet, threw it on him real quick, stood him up.
He asked me if I could get down or get over to the ladder, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to have to," because I knew there was others that were down.
Well, you're pretty banged up.
Yeah, just a little bit. I got hit in the chest, up and down my side, got hit in the throat, and I'm like, "Yeah, I guess I'll have to." And so I hooked my top arm around the top rung of the ladder and just climbed over and was concentrating on just thinking, if I fall now, I'm going to break my neck and die, and that's the last thing I want to do. So I'm just concentrating on getting my feet on that rung, and sure enough, I slipped, and luckily I had my arm, and I caught myself and pulled myself back up, got down, and then was able to inch my way down the ladder.
After I got Oz up and moving, I went straight back to Roan. He was still in the fetal position. I rolled him over. There was no response. I ripped off his body armor and tried to, got that off. Took a pulse. Couldn't feel nothing. Got the flashlight shining in his eyes. No pupil movements. No dilation. Put my ear to his chest and tried to see if his chest was going up and down, if I could hear a heartbeat. There was nothing. So I left him, went over to the other guy. So I did pretty much the same exact thing. checked him, ripped off his body armor, and there was nothing.
Yeah.
When you realize they're dead, what do you do?
Well, and I just kind of said a prayer over both of them.
And the quote is, God watch over him, guide him to where he needs to be, take care of his family.
Mm-hmm. So after that, I kind of, the D boys the whole time, they just want to get everybody off the roof. And when I was doing the prayer, I just ignored them. It was like gathered up everybody's weapons that was left.
You got to get the bodies off the roof. It's tough.
Mm.
The D boys picked the bodies up and dumped them over the side of the roof. Maybe that's not the right description, but they got them off the roof the most expedient manner, and by doing that, it was just throwing them over the edge of the roof to get them down. I just leave that to each person's decision on, whether right, wrong, indifferent, but I know that it's not something you want to see.
Turned on the news, and there it was. 4 Americans had been dead and 2 were unidentified. And I'm like, he hasn't called me. I tried texting him. I tried calling him. Began to cry, and I just hit my knees and prayed.
In past experience, if I start panicking right away, then I just get myself worked up. So I just tried to not worry about it. And I thought, well, I'll hear from him in the morning or the next evening.
There was a ticker on the bottom of whatever news channel it was, and it said something to the effect that there was an attack on the annex in Benghazi. And my heart dropped. And I'm like, gosh, how am I going to tell the kids? And that was my first reaction.
Let me take you to when the bigger convoy arrives. They finally get there. It's like 50 cars.
Yeah.
There's technicals, which are the big mounted machine guns.
It was a mean convoy. Remember the first vehicle coming in? I had my gun on him, had eyes on. Right at his head, and I just reached my hand off with my offhand, and I went like this, and he reached out the car and did a big smile. And one thing that we've learned on these jobs, you have to know how to read people.
But is there a part of you guys that looked at that convoy and said, where was that?
Yeah.
Where was that before?
Yes, I did. Like, where the hell were these guys? Where were they?
Hours ago.
Exactly.
You get everybody mounted up. You're driving to the airport in this massive convoy, but still probably worried about attacks on the way.
Sure.
You get there, and there's another confrontation
between the militias. Yeah, our militia, and then whoever militia was controlling the airport. And we were the bigger militia, so we got through.
You have a smaller airplane. It's not exactly big for everybody. Load you guys up, or you walk on.
They started to pull me off, and I'm like, I walked into Benghazi. I'm going to walk out of here, and I get up, slide to the edge, and stand up. There's still blood dripping down my arm, and because it was a private jet, there was a flight attendant, and her eyes just get as big as saucer plates, and she's laying towels down because she's worried about her boss's airplane getting messed up. And then they bring in Dave, and he was in and out of consciousness throughout the flight. And somewhere in between that, somebody's clearing their gun, their pistol.
In the plane.
Yeah.
In the plane. And a round goes off. And the pilot he wasn't going to take off till they could confirm that whether or not the fuselage had been breached.
But they figured it out.
It had lodged against one of the seat posts and didn't penetrate anything.
Dave Ubben, he was bleeding out. If there was another delay,
He probably wouldn't have made it because he was down to about as much blood as a person could lose before they die.
you're taking off in the plane. The rest of you guys are going to wait for the next plane.
Yes.
With the bodies and
Yes.
then eventually the body of Ambassador Stevens.
Yes.
I didn't answer it on the first ring. It rang a couple times because I wasn't sure who it was going to be. If it was going to be him or if it was going to be some, representative informing me of what had happened. I took a deep breath and I listened and I just said, okay, and I love you. And I probably didn't sleep much that night.
It was really brief. He just said, I'm okay, everything is okay, and click, he hung up. So it was super quick.
Finally, it was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. A nurse from Lonsdale had called and said that he had arrived there, and so I was just like I could breathe. Just thank God.
Would you do it all over again?
Yes.
Definitely. I'd be there.
That's just the way we are.
We run to it. We're not running away from it.
How often do you get back to this 13 hours? Do you think about it a lot?
Every day you think about it. There ain't a day that you don't.
I'm reminded of it every time I go to grab something.
With your hand?
Yeah, because I still don't have full use of it. Probably never will have full use of it. So it is a reminder. But it reminds me of the honor of fighting with guys like Tig and Tonto and Roan and Bub and Jack and DB. Very few times in your life will you get to form a bond like this, and most of the time it's done in situations that suck. But I wouldn't give it up.
When you see all of the back and forth that has happened over the past roughly 2 years, what do you think about all the political battle and that sort of thing?
You can't get it wrapped up in because we're not politicians. We're contractors. We're soldiers. We were Marines, Rangers. We still are. We'll always be. So leave that to the politicians. I can't speak for why a politician did this or why a politician did that. All I can speak for is what we went through that night and what happened.
If I gave you that 30 minutes back and I gave you some air power, would Ambassador Stevens and Sean Smith be alive today?
Yes. To me, if without the delay, they would still be alive. My gut is yes.
You in on that?
I'd strongly believe if we'd have left immediately, they'd still be alive today.
I think there's a lot of things could have been different. Air power, if we had some air support, if they'd have sent somebody in.
The Spectre, in my opinion, can see heat signatures. And,
they would have been able to see the mortars.
They would have been able to see the mortars team set.
Which means that Roan and Bub would be alive.
Would it have improved our chances? Oh, heck yeah.
Guys, I'm here with Nick. No, we're at the Trump Doral. Nick, everyone wants to know what in the world is going on. What are these? What's happening? What's going on? And also, who are you? So people would know.
Sure. Well, hello everyone. I ended up here at the Doral Hotel because I was presenting at the American Priority Conference. Thank you, by the way, American Priority Conference. And the reason I'm here is to tell everyone what really happened in Benghazi. Where I worked was the 603rd AOC out of Ramstein, Germany, and we're over AFRICOM and EUCOM combined. And in that time, my job was in combat operations, and I was in combat reports. I got all of the information from all of our subordinate units, and then I made them into situational reports and commander update briefings, also known as a CUB briefing. And every morning, or every afternoon, I would send those out, and there's a lot of information besides just the subordinate units. There's internal unit information and intelligence, logistics, personnel, weapon status, locations of troops, all that sort of stuff. That all went to my desk. So as kind of a unique position, everybody I worked with had their own job to do, and then they would send that information over, whatever they're doing, their work product, and I would get all that information, condense it into these reports, and I would send them up the chain to generals. There's probably about 20 generals, and then there's that were usually always there, and then there's a few other ones that rotated sometimes. Anyway, there's a lot of outside agencies as well, people with just civilian names, whatever. But anyway, in my time there, I was working at the Air and Space Operations Center there when Benghazi happened, when the attacks happened in Benghazi. And I was really concerned over what happened because one of the teams, or one of the subordinate units that reported to us, was a rescue team out of Djibouti. And then, so whenever this all happened, I was at work, and I ended up leaving thinking everything's going to be okay. At that point, I saw drones overhead. You could see circling, for hours while I was there. Left work, I thought they were coordinating, and it turns out that they did nothing. I mean, not to mention the night prior, before everybody was supposed to, come in the next day, one of my good friends, Josh Salmon, he was working the night it's called the watch desk. Basically, it's there's a skeleton crew at night, at least at that time, and he was in operations intelligence. Him and one other person was in there, and then we had the CCO, commanding officer. Long story short, he told me that whenever the attacks started happening, he's watching this in real time, and he's starting to contact agencies to see what they could do to coordinate something. Surge assets is what it's called. And he goes out to the CCO at the time, and the CCO tells him, don't call anybody in, we can't do anything. That's what he told him. So that was really concerning for me, and after I had seen at work everything going on, and then I left, and then I came back, and nothing was done still, I was confused, angry, and all kinds of things. And it turns out that there's a lot more going on than we really understood. I mean, some of the things that came out you already knew about because, obviously we're briefed on that every day. But so fast forward, I wait until I get out of the military, because at that point I realized if they're going to kill them, they sure as heck will kill me. So it's easy decision to be quiet and then get out of the military. Did that, and when I got out, I went over to, I probably don't need to tell you where I live, but I went to someone on the Benghazi committee, so that way I could go tell them, because it's the safest place, right? I figured, and as a Republican, I thought it was the safest place, and I'm a Republican, by the way, so, but, I was surprised that whenever I went to them and said, I have more information, I want to, at least go on the record and provide my account of what happened. And they said, we're not interested in that, and that investigation is over. So,
wow.
I audibly sounded concerned in my voice after that when I was still talking with their chief of staff. And then they said, well, go ahead and call the FBI then. And it's kind of like, what are you going to do about it? And that's where I was on. Yeah, that's when I realized that everything was a lot more corrupt than I could have ever understood at that time. I knew something was wrong. So I went to the FBI right after James Comey gets fired. I figured it might be safe by then. I thought it was just the top brass, Wrong. Went to the FBI. Still haven't got a call back, and I'm not going to talk to you, by the way, ever. Yeah, you had your chance. Anyway, went to the FBI. They never called me back. All he had to do was look me up in Office of Personnel Management to see where I worked, and they would have known when I worked there. It would have been easy for him. gave them all my information. They didn't do it. They didn't call me back. Okay, so anyway, fast forward, I kind of gave up on everything. I waited for a while. I didn't really have anything that I could do, so I saw Charles Woods in an interview with Dave Janda. By the way, he's great, Dave Janda. You got to check out his YouTube channel.
And also, who's Charles Woods, for those who don't know?
Charles Woods is the father of Ty Woods, who was killed on the rooftop in Benghazi by a mortar. And I saw him in an interview with Dave Janda, and in the interview he said that he's been lied to the entire time. He has no idea what happens to his son. He doesn't know why anything happened, and they've been lying to him the whole time. And so I didn't even think about it. I just picked up my phone and I sent an email right away to Dave. And luckily, Dave was picking. He has tons of emails, by the way. So luckily he saw it, and he gave me a call. It was really quick, and then I was just like, oh, okay, and then just kept rolling with it. So thank you, Dave.
And got connected with Charles.
Yes, got me connected with Charles so I could tell him what happened. So I get down there and talk with Charles, and it was a really hard conversation to have. It's a really hard conversation, and from there I got linked up with other witnesses, and then we've been going on radio shows and YouTube channels trying to get the truth out there. And over time, there's enough interest for us to do a presentation here at AmpFest, which is awesome. You got to come here. It's great weather, great location,
great people,
great people. Oh boy, it's lots of fun. Lots of fun too. So what was in my presentation that's caught everybody's attention is that through that time where I've done these interviews and stuff, I've been connected with more witnesses. I came in contact with Alan Perot. Alan has a treasure trove of audio recordings, documents, going back years. I mean, we're talking a long time. He was in the Middle East for over 20 years. He I don't want to say too much about it, but he's got recordings of a lot of people. So something that everybody wants to have is the evidence. Ooh, I want to hear and see the evidence. Guess what? We have it. We have irrefutable evidence. We have audio recordings of people, government officials, talking about it to Alan. And in there, you're going to find out some pretty shocking things. And that's just the start of it. That's just a couple of audio recordings and a document. You're going to find out that 3 former CIA directors were all implicated by allowing this to continue to keep bin Laden alive in Iran. They moved him from Iran over to Pakistan for the trophy kill. Instead of just giving him to us, Iran was like, all right, here, take him. They were going to give him to us. And instead, Hillary and Biden and them cooked up this plan to have him transferred to Pakistan for a trophy kill. They want to do a trophy kill.
Right before his reelection.
Yeah, they wanted to do it right before his reelection. And then, so, yeah, fast forward a little bit, he is reelected. One thing that people don't know, though, is that the payments to Iran were related to that. I've heard 2 things. I've heard that bin Laden, that wasn't him, as his body double. I mean, I guess we'll never know if they buried it at sea, that story, right? But either way, even if they did kill him or didn't kill him, the payments occurred because of that transaction. And of course, the pallets of cash are kickbacks, right? So
the transaction of SEAL Team 6's.
Oh, I'm talking about. Oh yeah. So afterward, after the this all happens, SEAL Team 6 gets shot down. It was only a really short time after that, and that was highly suspect even to us. And when we were briefed on it and everything, none of it made any sense. Nobody knows where they are at any time. Practically a handful of people do, and for them to be targeted so easily, like sitting ducks, that did not sit well. But anyway, I've come to find out that later that I knew that there were some weapons going through there, but I guess Hillary had been taking over the covert weapons program and started selling her weapons through there. There's only supposed to be small arms sold anyway, and they really didn't need them because we already provided the weapons, so they didn't even need to send the weapons through straight up. So that didn't even need to happen anyway, that other covert program. So Hillary takes over Mark Turi's covert program and says, hey, I got this now. Me and my people are going to do it. So first off, she didn't have authorization. Second off, State Department doesn't sell weapons. Third off, the reason that she did was because she wanted to sell Stinger missiles through Benghazi to shoot down SEAL Team 6. They shot down SEAL Team 6 with a Stinger missile that was sold by Hillary Clinton out of a weapons cache from Qatar that the CIA had put there. Big problems here. So,
Wow.
yes, and so
Well, the people are asking, when is everything going to come out? What do you say to that?
well, we're right now we're giving all of the audio and the documents to several different news outlets, and whoever gets there first is first. So
right.
that's the way it's going to be, because not to fault anybody, but we've been delayed because we put our trust into just one, and there's not enough time. We're just gonna give it to everybody. That's just the first stage, though. We're gonna have a couple of documents, some audio that's irrefutable. It's so damning. Joe Biden screwed, and Hillary, State Department screwed. I mean, everybody that's involved with this is just, they're gonna hang for it. I'm not an attorney or anything like that, but it's pretty plain to see it's treason. So I'm going to look forward to seeing justice served for that crime, because it's what it is. And this is just a start. We have a lot more documents, a lot more audio of I don't want to give away too much of.
Mind blowing, we'll say that.
All the other players involved in the whole process. So.
And can you confirm that a congressperson has the documents? Yeah, we're not going to say who.
Yeah, I can't tell you who, but a congressman has everything. And boy, am I glad that I was able to get that done. Yes.
Quickly as possible.
Yeah, so there's nothing stopping it. There's nothing that can stop it right now.
FBI official very close to me confirms everyone's worst suspicions. The Hillary Clinton email server was merely a distraction from the Clinton Foundation, and most of the Washington, D.C. is up in their necks in what could be the biggest scandal of all times. This is inside info, comes from someone who is high-level FBI analyst whose job was to look at the records with his notes added. The smoking gun is about to arrive, and there are a lot of people involved. To save everyone time, what follows here are the choice bits. Looks like Trump and Putin hold some of the cards. This could be the most interesting election ever. From November 2016, there is intense pressure within the FBI for us not to indict Hillary. I am sending this from a position of near anonymity and enough plausible deniability to evade prosecution, as we have all been given gag orders. There is enough for Hillary and the entire government to be brought down. People do not realize how enormous this whole situation actually is. Whether she will be indicted or not depends on how much info about others involved gets out, and there are a lot of people involved. The real point of interest is the Clinton Foundation, not the email server. We received the server from Benghazi, then from the server we found data on the Clinton Foundation. Then we realized the situation is much worse than previously thought. Superclassified materials on the Clinton email server. Hillary had special access programs on her server, which if made public would literally cause an uprising and possibly foreign declarations of war. A special access program is an intelligence program classified above top secret. These programs are supposed to be held on closed servers at secret locations. The only way to get one is if you are specifically read onto a program, have a need to know, then you must be physically go to a location and pass through several layers of security to even look at the program. A good example in non-classified terms would be the locations and operations of our intelligence operatives around the globe, or our missile silo locations. A bigger problem than Hillary, taking Hillary out would not cause this problem to go away. The problem is with the Clinton Foundation, as I mentioned, which you should just imagine as a massive spiderweb of connections and money laundering, implicating hundreds of high-level people. Though I do not have a high opinion of Hillary, she is just a piece, albeit a big piece, of this massive storm. Legal is asking preliminary questions about whether or not she has been coached. She has, and setting up the general line of questioning. I'm a high-level analyst, though, so my job is only to look at her records. From its donors to its board of directors, and imagine they are all implicated. The entire federal government is involved. My opinion is the entire government is guilty of treason. which is why Hillary's death would not cease the investigation or prevent further scandals. Many people are involved. There already is enough evidence to indict the most severe prosecution. FBI Director Comey has been trying to stall because he does not want to face the Clinton machine, as well as the rest of Washington, D.C. But this case would explode into a million other cases if fully brought to light, and then we would be one agency competing against the entire government and a horde of other interests. It is a very tense and uncomfortable position. What Attorney General Loretta Lynch has said is she would have accepted whatever they do and make her determination as she will. Nothing about her responsibilities has changed. She is simply trying to keep her hide intact. Foreign powers have some of the documents. Russia will probably leak all info they have. Foreign powers are in possession of some of the documents we have analyzed because they were hacked from the Clinton server. The leaks will have to be made in a non-transparent fashion. If we recommend, we literally hand over documentation implying the entire government is involved in treason at the highest levels and everyone is about to duck and cover, as well as some sensitive details of special access programs which would obliterate national security. I am not sure, but some of my war strategy buddies are estimating a high probability that Russia will leak all of the info they have to the world since Clinton wants to go to war with them, and they have no desire to be in conflict with the U.S. if we do not recommend. It will look like a cover-up, and Trump will use the perception to bolster his message. I did work in PSYOPs once, and Trump's use of confirmation bias is legendary. If Trump wins, Hillary goes to jail. Everything is corrupt. The entire government is corrupt. No one is clean. We have our hands tied. My message to you and everyone on this board is do not get distracted by Clinton's emails. Focus on the foundation. All the nightmarish truth is there. The emails will pale in comparison. A multitude of scandals, Saudi Arabia visits and donates to Clinton Foundation, Russia uranium fiasco, Hillary and the Israel lobby, the Council on Foreign Relations, AIPAC. The list is endless. Also, there is a standing issue of the Davy Crockett's and the fact that Obama approved the transfer of several of them to Syrian rebels. We now know they have fallen into the hands of the enemy. That's right. Obama gave nukes to the end of not only the United States, but Russia as well. There are three choices that could crash everything. I will put it there. You have three choices. A. Turn over all of the information to the Department of Justice. Make public a recommendation. The truth comes out. The entire world realizes how much the U.S. is meddling in foreign affairs, and we go to war. The civilian population realizes how much foreign money influences our government, and a civil war begins. B. Cherry-pick the data to implicate the people already in the eye of public opinion, so the chips fall on the heads of a select few and the whole system does not crash. C. Do nothing and watch the unstable political climate to gauge how you will respond. I am confident if Trump wins, Hillary will be going to jail, and that is what they won't allow that to happen at any cost. The problem is the entire government. FBI Director Comey will likely resign in any case. FBI is being very quiet for a reason. Most of us want to keep our jobs. Snowden has nothing to do with any of this. Obama and Hillary do hate each other. Hillary hates black people, and Obama dislikes recklessness. The problem is with the entire government. Hillary is just one component of that government. Hillary sold safe access programs to overseas donors. All I can tell you about the safe access programs is that Hillary had them, and she did not have proper authority to have any of them. They were leaked to her by someone, and she did sell them to overseas donors. Possessing them alone makes her guilty of treason. Obama is loosely tied to the Clinton Foundation, but much more tied in with the same people who donate to the Clinton Foundation. Russian borders, Ukraine, everywhere NATO is, the South China Sea, the Philippines, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Africa. George Soros is at the heart of all of this. If it comes down to it, I would fight. But most of us are at the opinion that Hillary will not be president, and having Trump in office makes our job that much easier. But right now, we have to carefully wade through the mud. As I stated before, Bill Clinton likely wanted Loretta Lynch to focus on the email server and shy away from prosecuting the foundation. Needless to say, if anyone has any doubts about the validity of the above info, it stands to reason that the originator has to conceal his identity. Anyone present at the FBI hearings was sworn to secrecy, and leaking any info would at least cost him his job and most likely add some jail time to boot. Worst case scenario, someone probably would put a contract out on him. Most of us know, at least the ones who have paid any attention to politics know, that in the past, many who have crossed the Clintons met an inexplicable early demise. Ron Brown and Vince Foster were no exceptions, and his name was Seth Rich. Ultimately, Hillary sold weapons and coordinates of the Chinook chopper carrying the 12 SEALs that killed bin Laden, along with the rocket that killed them to the bin Laden family. She used Stevens to arrange the transfer of funds, which was $1.2 billion to the Clinton Foundation and Swiss accounts. In the deal was nuclear, information from classified files from the 70s. She had Stevens in the Pentagon getting a server to take with him to Benghazi. There was a backup server, that was the one in her closet. She then allowed the bin Ladens to mass the people to raid Stevens' compound. Stevens had no idea what he brokered and had no idea the server contained top-secret nuclear files. The plan was going great until the SEALs and the CIA guys from the other compound went over to assist. She did not know they were going to assist and were ordered to stand down. The plan was to kill Stevens and his guys, in the process allow the bin Laden family to have nuclear secret codes to one day avenge their son. The plan went south when those guys from the other compound refused to stand down. They get to the compound in time to rescue a few guys, and what else? They ended up with the server. Once word got back to the White House that Stevens' guys were rescued, Hillary ordered a complete stand down to the rescue mission and then told the commander of the invading force to attack the other compound. By that time, she wanted everyone dead and the enemy to have the server. During the attack on Compound 2, a tech guy got into the server. They knew something was very, very odd. What did they find? Top secret nuclear files. They immediately break standard protocol and transfer the files to a top secret server in case they were overran. By this time, Hillary has already fabricated the story that a pastor in California made a YouTube video that caused the mob to attack. A total lie. She then, to fulfill her end of the deal, starts emailing the files to random staff members on accident, while allowing the bin Laden family to intercept the data while it was on motion. At this point, some of her staff planned to defect. It was these people who were ultimately leaking the DNC emails to WikiLeaks. She was told the Benghazi server was destroyed and she believed it. At least she hoped it was true. Little did she know that it was at the time her own intel community began to hack her personal emails, as well as giving them to Julian Assange. The day before the election, they were going to drop this bomb to destroy her, but by that time they knew Trump was going to win. Here's an even more crazy information. A list of senators who knew about it. There was a total of $1.7 trillion given in grants to spread the wealth to try to sweep things under the rug. Things were getting very desperate for many. The money was granted by Obama to Mideast nations, and then given back to our politicians through a series of Swiss entities. The Clintons have hundreds of these entities alone. John McCain is at the top of the list of recipients. He and other Republicans. Just trace those who campaigned against Trump, and it will lead to all those who are guilty. And it gets even crazier. Chris Stevens had a few more gifts that he did not know anything about. These gifts were 7 Davy Crockett M388 nuclear mortars. Obama had the weapons declassified and transferred to the Syrians through a group in Benghazi. Ultimately, in September, one of these weapons were used and killed nearly 20 Russian troops in Syria. That's right, American nukes killing Russian troops. Remember, Putin ordered 40 million Russian citizens to perform a nuclear evacuation. That was his response to send a message to Hillary what he was preparing for if she got elected. Now we know that the remaining 6 Davy Crockett's are in the hands of Iran. We also know that Obama have lifted the nuclear restrictions on Iran, and we also know that Obama gave Iran $150 billion. So between what was on the servers, the Davy Crockett's, the lifted restrictions, the $150 billion, there is enough evidence to convict the Obamas and Clintons and many, many more members of the government high treason. Trump was given some of this data 2 years ago. He has known all along. Trump conversation with Obama on November 10th was about this exact subject. This is high treason. Nuclear information sold to our enemies punishable by death. That is why all Democrats, all Republicans, and all media are against Trump. They all know what happens now. When Hillary got the news that she lost Pennsylvania, she had a major seizure, which is why she couldn't address the crowd Tuesday night. Now they are seeking the 2020 candidate who will be pushed with a $3 billion fund to place him or her in the White House. Soros, Clintons, Obamas, and a huge list of people are going down. They'll try to push back the trials and try to get a Democrat in 2024 so they can all be pardoned. Stay informed. Do not believe what you hear on TV. They are all involved. We are one. With truth, we can unite. With lies, we are divided.
Have accused Ambassador Rice and the administration of, misleading Americans. I can say, trying to be in the middle of this and understanding what was going on, nothing could be further from the truth. Was information developing? Was the situation fluid? Would we reach conclusions later that weren't reached initially? And I appreciate
Madam Secretary, do you disagree with me that a simple phone call to those evacuees to determine what happened wouldn't have ascertained immediately that there was no protest? I mean, that was a piece of information that could have been easily obtained.
Well, but Senator,
within hours, if not days.
Senator, when you're in these positions, the last thing you want to do is interfere with any other process
Well,
going
I
on.
realize,
Number one.
I realize that's a good excuse.
Number two, no, it's the fact. Number two, I would recommend highly you read both what the ARB said about it and the classified ARB, because even today there are questions being raised. Now, we have no doubt they were terrorists, they were militants, they attacked us, they killed our people. But what was going on and why they were doing what they were doing?
No. Again, we were misled that there were supposedly protests and then something sprang out of that, an assault sprang out of that. And that was easily ascertained that was not the fact. And the American people could have known that within days, and they didn't know that.
With all due respect, the fact is we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make? It is our job to figure out what happened and do everything we can to prevent it from ever happening again, Senator. Now, honestly, I will do my best to answer your questions about this, but the fact is that people were trying in real time to get to the best information. The IC has a process, I understand, going with the other committees to explain how these talking points came out. But to be clear, it is, from my perspective, less important today, looking backwards, as to why these militants decided they did it, than to find them and bring them to justice. And then maybe we'll figure out what was going on in the meantime.
Talk about apology. I think the one that you should really be apologizing for, and the thing that you should be apologizing for, are the 33,000 emails that you deleted and that you acid washed. And then the 2 boxes of emails and other things last week that were taken from an office and are now missing. And I'll tell you what, I didn't think I'd say this, but I'm going to say it. And I hate to say it. But if I win, I am going to instruct my Attorney General to get a special prosecutor to look into your situation, because there has never been so many lies, so much deception. There has never been anything like it. And we're going to have a special prosecutor. When I speak, I go out and speak. The people of this country are furious. In my opinion, the people that have been long-term workers at the FBI are furious. There has never been anything like this, where emails and you get a subpoena, and after getting the subpoena, you delete 33,000 emails. And then you acid wash them, or bleach them, as you would say, a very expensive process. So we're going to get a special prosecutor, and we're going to look into it, because you know what? People have been, their lives have been destroyed for doing 1/5 of what you've done. And it's a disgrace. And honestly, you ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Secretary Clinton, I want to follow up on that. I'm going to let you talk about email.
Because everything he just said is absolutely false, but I'm not surprised. Really? In the first debate, I want to do and how we're going to really make lives better for people. So once again, go to HillaryClinton.com. We have literally Trump. You can fact check him in real time. Last time at the first debate, we had millions of people fact checking. So I expect we'll have millions more fact checking because, it's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.